Hello and welcome to the Hutchinson Veterans Outreach Program. My name is Lisa Dittell, and today we have with us Melanie Butler. She is the founder from the Eagle's Nest. Welcome, Melanie.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Today we're going to kind of approach a kind of a deep subject. There was a Facebook posting that you posted out, I believe this was just a couple of weeks ago.
4th of July.
4th of July, about 7 veterans in Minnesota that had committed suicide.
Correct.
So I'd like to at least start the conversation. It's a hard topic sometimes, but if we don't approach it, we can't help. So I'd like to ask you a little bit about what you do and how you can work with the veterans in this issue.
Tragically, the week of the 4th of July, 7 families are now grieving, and soldiers and their military families are grieving their loss. But that conversation needs to start honestly. Exactly. The statistics can be whatever they want them to be. So, it started out with 22 push-ups, 22 veterans take their lives, but realistically that's far higher than that. It's about coming from a place of love and caring, and not about pressing one. It's about making sure that there's enough boots on the ground to show them that you care, not a sign at the front of the building that says, "We care." Yeah. Or press one, or come later for another appointment. So it's the boots on the ground, it's the grassroots, but it's about that honest conversation and not sugarcoating it, not overlooking it, and not saying, "Oh, it's just a bad day." You don't know when that bad day is going to end. And we need to break that stigma and just be brutally honest about what that is, and not be afraid to ask that hard question. Are you suicidal? Exactly. Do you have a plan? Exactly. And do whatever it takes to keep them safe. And sometimes those decisions are really hard, meaning you may have to call a health and welfare check, meaning that you may have to scream and holler to find a bed. But more importantly, if you have boots on the ground and network a bunch of people, you can truly make a difference.
Exactly. I know sometimes, like they say, we can hide behind a mask of just about anything.
Absolutely.
We can smile when we are hurting so bad inside.
Absolutely.
We can stand in the face of danger and hold strong. But the problem with suicide is it's not about being weak, it's about being strong for too long.
Absolutely. It's about mental health. We don't punish someone that has or have a stigma if they have cancer and they're going through chemo and they need medication, or they're battling, all of these other things that physically they may be seeing. Those invisible wounds of war are deep, and we're seeing them from every generation. And so we have not even hit the tip of the iceberg. Right now, the Vietnam vets are struggling. They're retiring. Their health is taking a huge toll. I was just sharing with you before we went on air about the 3 veterans that were being treated within the VA system that were not service connected at all. They were being treated as if they were an indigent. And where were their advocates? Where was their county veteran service officers? Just because they may not have the courage to ask for help. For all those different people, doing the job and not checking a box is costing lives. So although they're battling Agent Orange, yeah, their doctors say that. You're telling them they're not a veteran, and you're making them jump through hoops. And so, I'm blessed that I've made enough connections that I can rattle those cages, and I really don't care whose I rattle at this point anymore, because it's costing lives. And
exactly.
So we have the Vietnam vets whose suicide rate is astronomical right now, and then we have the Gulf War vets, the first Gulf War,
Yeah.
that were just now coming for help. And that's not including Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you look at that, the parallels are very similar. Vietnam was Agent Orange, and those are physical pains as well, and things that are going on with their body and their mental health. In Iraq and Afghanistan and Gulf War, that's the burn pits. So what we don't need is more studies. What we don't need is another layer of bureaucratic BS or another program. It's about doing like Saluting Community Heroes is doing here in town, yep. And HUA and Combat Vet Motorcycle Associations and the local legions and VFWs working together, creating this whole network of boots on the ground. That's exactly what's needed to get someone to them. We understand there's a shortage of mental health. Why is there a shortage? Because our government's tied it up in red tape and people can't do what they need to do. Yep. And that's care for people. That's the reality. You don't hear about the wonderful things they're doing. You may hear a bleep about something bad that or tragic that's happened. But the reality is, if you dig deeper to that, they've been over-medicated. They've been misdiagnosed. They've been misdiagnosed intentionally. Mm-hmm. Denied benefits. Yep. So, I mean, it's about boots on the ground and that honest discussion of peeling it away.
What are some of the signs that we might be able to see in somebody who's having a tough time?
There's a number of different things, and each one actually each person presents in a different way. Some you may not even know at all. Some you'll recognize things right away. Your personality change, lack of caring for themselves, giving away personal items, reaching out. And with social media now, it's crazy how many we do interventions that way, or that someone recognizes something that way. If they're giving away prized possessions, if they're telling you they're going to take a long trip, if they're using substances or not on medication, or if they are crying, if they're isolated, there's a whole host of things they can do. Or if they're overly joyed, yeah. Or if they're making plans for the future, or but they're plans that don't necessarily make sense to the family or to loved ones. So there's lots of signs. So when we say that, it's about taking the time to listen, yep. And to peel that apart to see what that looks like.
Exactly. You know? I know some of the other things that I had found out were, excuse me, sleeping too much.
Absolutely.
Or not sleeping enough.
Absolutely. Hypervigilance.
Exactly.
So we just had, as I was sharing with you before we went on the air, another boots on the ground nonprofit. We're all on call 24/7, but she reached out because she had to make that hard call. She had to send law enforcement and health and welfare because a veteran was overdosing on the medications the VA gave them. If you know they're at high risk, then don't send them out the damn door with a 90-day prescription.
Right.
Regardless of what that is. People overdose on aspirin. They overdose on things locally in our communities that you can buy at the pharmacy. Yep. But yet, a system that we have multiple veterans struggling with mental health, addiction, and high risk for suicide, you're giving them a 90-day supply as they're coming out of a program. There isn't a whole lot of common sense. You and I both said we're not doctors or clinicians, exactly. But that's just plain stupid. Whatever that looks like.
Exactly. We don't always know.
We don't always know
what somebody's going through.
Absolutely. And this whole thing of what is a veteran and what qualifies as a veteran, we're seeing a huge number of veterans that need nursing homes or assisted livings. And we get weekly calls on them. The nest is in an assisted living or a nursing home, but yet others are checking a box.
Yep.
And there's no place for them to go. That's a disgrace on our country. It truly is. And then but we'll hear them say, we care. The people that care are people like yourself and and saluting community heroes and HUA and CVMA
And you and the
N22.
Eagle's Nest.
It's about small organizations that really don't care about any rules anymore. It's truly about just saving lives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with whatever resources we can.
Exactly.
You know, and not tying it up, just not tying it up and having that serious conversation. And that's tough. And it's tough as a family member to tell a mom, let them sit in jail.
Yep.
They're safe. You get a good night rest. We can deal with the rest later. That doesn't mean that we won't advocate for them or keep them on the acute unit or ask for a civil commitment. The problem is there's no beds.
Yep.
So without organizations like ourselves and you know, the Grace Home in Montana and so many others building, and you know, MacV does some housing, but lots of people are connecting, and they're not big entities.
Exactly.
They're just small people trying to make a difference and trying not to get sucked up into the rest of it, because that's the number one things the veterans say. No one cared. I called the hotline. I was turned away. That's happening still today. No matter what the media is saying, it happens.
Yep.
Every day. And there's nothing more heart-wrenching to have a family member call and say, I just took my loved one to the VA and they said they wouldn't let them in. The door's locked because it's 4 o'clock.
End of business day.
End of business day.
But
So
the
they,
business doesn't stop for the veterans at any time.
no. And that phone call needs to be answered.
Exactly.
And not a return phone call.
Yep.
Or the crisis is over. So let's do a follow-up appointment.
Yep.
You know, that's the cold, hard, honest truth about how we're going to change those numbers. It's about boots on the ground. It's not about, I don't care about statistics. I really don't care. Or what they say that they're doing or what they're trying to do. The bottom line is we need to do it today.
Exactly.
So when you know that someone's struggling, reach out. Send someone from the strike teams that are being started all over the state. If you don't know someone in an area, reach out. Someone else will. Facebook message. We do that all the time.
And keep reaching out.
Absolutely.
Even if one doesn't answer, somebody's not home, keep going, keep looking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't be afraid to make that hard call. And if they don't listen the first time, call back.
Exactly.
You know, I'd rather have, you know, I've heard parents say, or loved ones or spouses, but they'll be angry. I'd rather have them angry and mad as hell at me and have them safe in a hospital than dead.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
that's the reality. So ask that hard question. Are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? Do you have weapons? If you know someone's at risk, put gun locks on them. On that gun lock, have that veteran put a picture of their family. You just need that moment of hesitation,
Yep.
that moment to have some clarity.
Exactly.
That's it. That's all you need.
And sometimes even reaching out to a friend
Absolutely.
can just give you that moment.
Absolutely. A message. You know, I don't know how many times that the veterans at the Nest and other organizations, even for myself, just wanted to send you a smiley face today. You know, I know you had a rough night, you know. That gives you the strength to keep going and to keep fighting. But that also works with veterans.
Yep.
You know, even if the veterans peer-to-peer at the Nest say, that behavior is not tolerated here, and the veteran makes a choice, we always offer tons of resources. If they choose not to, take those. There isn't a lot we can do.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we don't still communicate with them. They don't still continue to reach out to them. But also don't forget those family members that are struggling and those that they served with, because they continue to struggle. And we don't want them to be the next statistic, and truly we're seeing a lot of that right now. One of the hardest things too, I think, for our veterans is just watching the local news and how it's portrayed, and you know, where our country is right now. I just want them all to know that their fight, that their commitment, that them signing on the dotted line for God, for country, and for family, there are millions of us that love and support you, and we will do whatever it takes. And it is not in vain. And, you know, I apologize that the system is broke, but there are many people fighting, and we want them to continue to fight and their families to reach out as well.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.